And I said, come on over, you'll say.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Town of Portland podcast. This is Ryan, is this the first one or the second one this year?
This is the first for me of the new year, Dave.
First one? Oh, all right. Happy New Year, bud. All right. This is going to be episode number 46, and this is going to be the first one for Ryan of the new year. And with us in the studio is obviously our first selectman, Mr. Ryan Curley, and on the phone calling in is our illustrious Chatham Health Director, Mr. Russ Melmed. So, hi, Russ. How you doing?
I'm a little tired, Dave, but otherwise I'm healthy and well. So.
Well, hey, that's a good. We'll count our blessings here. So
right.
To go from there. So, all right, let's get started with Ryan here. And Ryan, give us the update on. I think this is week 1 of January. So, welcome.
It doesn't feel like week 1, does it?
I know.
It's been a long year already, Ryan.
It has. But we're doing well. Things have been busy. As you know, Russ is on, and he can speak to our COVID-19 efforts after. But we've had a lot of activity going on with the state and test kit distribution and N95 mask distribution. There was a lot of back and forth last week and a lot of confusion that ultimately got cleared up, but I think every town in the state was going through the same chaos of making plans and then changing plans and trying to figure out exactly how many test kits we were getting from the state and how many N95 masks we were getting, and then when we were getting them too. So we've been busy. Last week we were very busy with that. I think it was last Monday when we found out on a conference call that the state had procured, I believe it was, I can't even remember now, 500,000 test kits, and so each town was going to be allotted some. Portland was going to get 1,260 test kits, and then a shipment of N95 masks as well. And then we made plans to distribute them on Friday. That was last Friday, and ultimately on Thursday, first we were told by the state that the shipping had been delayed, and then we were told that, in fact, that we had gotten outbid and we were not getting that batch of test kits. So we were told that on Thursday, and then on Friday morning, surprise, another shipment, a different shipment of test kits came in, a smaller batch, and we immediately were able to get to work. We had those then delivered on New Year's Eve, which was kind of crazy. So we found out we may be getting tests on Friday morning, and by New Year's Eve they had been delivered to the firehouse. And so we got, in addition to those test kits, we also got a large shipment of N95 masks. So on Sunday we had a great distribution here at the high school.
Yeah. And
we hope to be able to do that again very soon. I don't want to announce anything yet because I'm not announcing any distributions until we have test kits in hand. But we are supposed to be receiving additional test kits, and so hopefully. So stay tuned to that because we should have more news on that soon.
Yeah, that distribution went very well, Ryan. I tell you, it went like clockwork. I think the Don Guin and his CERT team and, you and Christy and Susan were all up here, and I think it went phenomenally well.
It was a team effort. It was the fire department. It was the police department. It was especially that CERT team and their volunteers who were up here, and many thanks to Don Guin for making those plans, and by all accounts, I've really heard nothing but positive feedback from that distribution. The only problem is that we don't have enough tests.
We ran out.
Yeah, we run out. So we're gonna hopefully do that again very soon. The good news though is that we do have plenty of N95 masks, and they are available at Town Hall. So if you are in need of an N95 mask, we're giving 4 per family at Town Hall, or 2 per person. So you can go to the first Selectman's office, and Michelle there will get you the N95 masks that you need.
Nice. Great. Okay. What else is new in in town government now that you're you're in the barrel here?
We're in the barrel. There's a lot. There's a lot of good things coming. I think we had some very big news, I would say, at last night's Board of Selectmen meeting, and we have a new town clerk.
Ah, yes.
So his name is Michael Tierney. He's a fairly well-known name in town. You might have seen him around town. He's been the scoutmaster for Troop 2 of the Boy Scouts in town for many years. He also had run the train display with the Cellar Savers for many Christmases throughout the holidays. And you may also have seen him as Santa Claus at our tree lighting this year. So he is well known. He's a man of many different activities.
Got a lot of hats.
He does have a lot of hats, and but more importantly, he also has the background. He has the business background to be able to jump into a brand new field and pick it up and make that office his own. And so we're very fortunate to have him. I think he's going to be a very friendly face that people like to see when they come into the clerk's office. I was town clerk for 6 years. I know that you get calls, questions about such a wide variety of things. It's always helpful to have somebody who not only is knowledgeable but is welcoming as well. So I think we have a good town clerk in Michael. So I just want to say congratulations to him, and I look forward to working with him.
Yeah, maybe we can. I know people were talking to him last night and wanting, hey, can you set up your train display in the town hall?
You know what? I would not put that past him. So maybe for next year. For
the holidays.
For the holidays. So Mike will be starting in a couple weeks, and that'll be good. And then the town clerk's office will be back to full capacity, and we're on to the next challenge. I will say we did have another resignation last week. We're unfortunately losing our building official, Lincoln White, who has taken another job in another town. So we're going to miss him. His last day is tomorrow, Friday. And so thank you to Lincoln for his, I think, 15 years of service to the town of Portland.
Yes, he's been a big asset. Absolutely.
Yeah. So especially the search is going to move quickly for a building official with all of the work that we have coming up.
Yes.
With Brainerd Place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important position to fill, and we are working to fill that quickly. So the other thing that I'd like to talk about was last night the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to use some of our American Rescue funds for some water and sewer infrastructure projects. And so, as you know, a lot of our pipes in town, a lot of our infrastructure is over 100 years old. And we have to make some improvements to this. And so last night, the board approved $1.1 million for water and sewer infrastructure improvements, along with some road work to patch and to pave and to reclaim the road after the repairs are made.
Yes. I think that is a distinction, and that was one of the priority uses, obviously, for the ARCA money. Was for infrastructure. So I think the selectmen were, rightfully so, okaying that. I know there was, some discussions and so forth, but I think it's money that's sorely needed, and I think it's work that desperately needs to be done.
I wish we had more of it. To be
absolutely,
honest.
absolutely.
What's amazing is how $1.1 million doesn't really go as far as you would think it would go.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm pleased that we can move forward with that and get that infrastructure improvement. So I think we could talk. The other thing is the board also approved, along with the Board of Education, on a architectural firm to do an evaluation of our school properties, and we voted and appointed the architectural firm Fryer, who will be doing this work for us, and we hope to have some information on this work completed by June, so that we have plan that we can put in place for the future of all of our school buildings and prepare for any improvements that are needed.
Yes, absolutely. And I think as we're all in flux here, and obviously infrastructure and school systems are maximizing the use of all of our facilities. That is one of the projects that we need kind of outside eyes to look and evaluate. And from all indications, the Lou Pear, who was on the committee again with Dr. Britton, vetted this company very well. They got high reviews, so I think they'll do the town well.
I think so. So yeah, we got a lot of good stuff going on. We're very busy. There's a lot going on, I can promise you. So I hope next meeting I'll have plenty more to report.
Absolutely right. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. And again, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know it's always hectic down in the office and so forth to come up and do the podcast. And again, it's very, very informational. And now I think we'll turn it over to our frequent flyer, the man of the hour. Okay, Mr. Russ Melmed, our Chatham Health Director from the great state of East Hampton. So,
Dave, can somebody else be the man of the hour? Sometime. I'm questioning my life choices here.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't think, I'll just sort of state the obvious. There's a lot of COVID-19 out there in all our communities, Portland included. Case rates don't really tell the story at this point for a number of reasons. I mean, I'll give you the numbers. The latest 2-week rolling average in Portland is 68 cases per 100,000. That'll be updated later today. It's likely to be much higher. But it really isn't telling painting the picture of what's going on in our communities right now with COVID-19 for a number of reasons. One, if anybody who's listening has tried to get a COVID-19 test, either an at-home test or a drive-through state-funded testing site or an appointment at CVS, in the last few weeks they could likely tell you a horror story of driving all over the state, waiting in long lines, and then being turned away. So most people looking for a test right now simply can't get them. So we're undercounting cases on that because of that. The other reason why these 2-week rolling average case counts don't tell the full story is because cases are accelerating so fast right now that this is really blunting what the real picture is. So when you include data from, at this point, almost 3 weeks ago, it really is bringing what is going on in the curve down quite a bit. So we're really undercounting, but technically Portland is around 68 cases per 100,000. State of Connecticut, if you look at Johns Hopkins data, as a state, we're at around 210 cases per 100,000 on a 7-day rolling average. And that's more than twice as high in terms of cases than we've ever been in the state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And keeping in mind what I just said about testing. So there are probably about 3 cases unreported for every case that is reported. So that's a lot of COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Ryan, just a question. How many people attended the Board of Selectmen meeting last night?
In person, well, we had 7 board members, and then, David was there.
Yeah, I think maybe about 12.
Yeah, I'd say 12 to 15, maybe.
12 to 15. If you took 20 people in Portland or anywhere else in Connecticut at random, you picked them at random, in all likelihood, at least one of them would be infectious with COVID-19 at the time. So that's really what the real impact is. That's really what anybody who's listening is planning to getting together with a big group of people indoors, for example, should consider that once you start moving past 20 people, the law of averages says one of them is infected with COVID-19. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that once people find out they have COVID-19, they aren't isolating, right? So this doesn't take into account human behavior, that once you know you have COVID, you shouldn't be going to group gatherings, right? But sometimes we don't know we have COVID-19. Sometimes we don't know for a few days. Sometimes we just can't get tested. So point of emphasis is there's a lot of COVID out there. If you're going to a group gathering, the expectation for me would be somebody is going to be there with COVID-19. Hopefully by accident. Hopefully they just don't know it, but that's how much is out there.
Right.
So case counts, that's what we're looking at. I prefer now at this point to look at hospitalizations in the state. I don't think that cases tell a good story either, because most people in the state of Connecticut are fully vaccinated, and most people who are getting infected right now, whether fully vaccinated or unvaccinated, continue to have mild disease. If you're unvaccinated, you're much more likely to have severe disease, and about 3/4 of the people in the hospital right now are unvaccinated, even though they make up less than 1/3 of the population of the state. So, right now there's never been a better time. Actually, it's not true. There have been better times to get your vaccine. But if you haven't been vaccinated yet, really don't delay. The time is now to get vaccinated. And if you're eligible for a booster shot, get your booster shot. The CDC just recommended that children as young as 12 who are eligible to get a booster, who are 5 months past their Pfizer, second dose of the Pfizer vaccine, should get boosted. Getting boosted is the best way to prevent infection. Because right now what we're seeing with the Omicron variant is it's pretty effective at sidestepping both natural immunity from people who had a previous infection and vaccine-induced immunity. So even if you had 2 doses of Pfizer, you're only about 30% protected from infection. So many people who are fully vaccinated but not yet boosted are getting infected, and they're just, once you're infected, whether you're vaccinated or not, you're plenty capable of spreading it to others. So, we're seeing that. I think for anybody who's listening right now, I would be shocked if anybody doesn't have a close, immediate family member or a very close friend or coworker who hasn't tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 2 weeks. I'd be surprised. That's
right.
Just the facts. And many people would tell stories of those people having been fully vaccinated. But you'd probably be hard-pressed to find somebody who knows somebody who's in the hospital who was fully vaccinated.
Right.
It's a pretty rare event right now. So
Sure.
being fully vaccinated, getting your booster is the best way to stay out of the hospital. But unfortunately right now, this new variant is really doing a good job sidestepping our immune response and causing infections.
Right. Well,
those N95 masks right now, because Omicron is so transmissible, that's the reason why in the state of Connecticut we've decided to distribute N95 masks to people, because those loose-fitting cloth face coverings that people really loved, in May of 2020, I don't want to say loved at this point, let's just say that people had been using. Those really aren't thought to provide too much protection from Omicron at this point. If you're going to be wearing a face mask, it really should be very tightly fitted around your nose and around the sides of your face, completely covering the mouth and nose. It should be made of, if it's cloth, I recommend at this point 3 or more layers of fabric. But, those surgical style masks are a little bit better. But N95s and KN95s seem to be what provide the most protection. But I will tell anybody who has not worn an N95 mask before that if you're planning on wearing it for 8 hours during a day, you're going to be challenged to do that.
It gets old.
Yeah, they're just not particularly comfortable. They're probably good for brief, crowded interactions. That's where I will be wearing my N95 mask. Is if I'm going to a sporting event for a couple of hours and it's going to be crowded. If I'm going to some kind of indoor social gathering where I'm not going to have to eat or drink. If I'm going to a public meeting of some kind, if I live in Colchester, I serve on one of the boards there. If I'm going to go to an in-person board meeting, I'm going to be wearing my N95 mask. But otherwise, it's going to be a real challenge for people to wear those for long periods of time. I'm just warning folks.
Well, yeah, and I think people that go into doctor's offices now, if you have a cloth mask, they tell you that they give you a surgical mask.
Surgical mask, because those tend to be fitted better around the sides of your face and over the bridge of your nose. They're a little bit better. So yes, that's right, and those are pretty affordable. If somebody wants to go out and purchase a box of N95s, for anybody who's ever worked with, in any kind of construction, you've probably gotten some at, Home Depot or any other hardware stores. We don't want the ones with the valves, but the other kind that don't have the valves. Those are N95 masks. But you can think of them just as a really high-quality mask.
Right.
Unless you're fit tested, that's a very special process by which, you put different size masks on your face, N95s, and you actually get a measurement for how much air is escaping around the sides. Really, that number should be 0. So unless you're fit tested, it's not going to provide the same level of protection as people who work in healthcare. So anybody who's seen somebody in a a hospital or doctor's office wearing an N95 mask, they've been fit tested. So don't think that just by getting one at this distribution and putting it on, you're invulnerable to COVID-19.
Right.
You're not. If you're not going to get fit tested, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend everybody go out and get fit tested, but that's where it's going to provide the level of protection that they're rated for.
Right.
The 95% filtration of all airborne particles. But they are better than cloth face coverings. They are better than the surgical masks. And so if you're somebody who's particularly high risk, especially, and you need to go into a crowded indoor setting, that's a really good time to wear an N95 mask.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's true. I mean, if you kind of compare this thing, as we talked before we come on the air, is this thing is like a forest fire. It's burning hot, and hopefully
it's burning hot. That's right. It's going to burn. It's going to burn hot for another few weeks. I think we're going to see further acceleration of cases in the state of Connecticut over the next couple of weeks before it starts to come back down. That's been the experience in the UK. It's been the experience in South Africa, and anywhere previous to us that's had the Omicron wave come through them. And unfortunately, it really is causing a lot of disruptions. Businesses are having a hard time keeping their doors open because so many staff are out sick. That goes for municipalities as well.
Sure.
And anybody in social service, transportation, everything. There's some schools having a hard time getting enough bus drivers because they're out sick. I don't know if that's happening in Portland, Dave. Do you know if they had?
Yeah, we've had a few issues as far as in relation. We've had to combine some routes as far as that goes, and we did Charles's podcast a day before yesterday, and he said they did have some issues with school bus drivers and so forth, and what they ended up doing is, I guess, bringing one or two drivers from other towns that were less impacted.
I had heard, I don't know if this is actually happening, I'd heard that the National Guard was being mobilized to potentially, take over some of those bus routes if towns weren't able to staff them. I don't know how many folks who work in who serve in the National Guard have the kind of license you need to drive a bus.
Right. Well,
that's one of those things.
That's the other thing.
Just because you are serving in the National Guard doesn't necessarily mean you know how to drive a school bus.
Exactly. You may know how to drive a bulldozer, but
Yeah, bulldozer. Some kind of armored personnel carrier.
Sure.
Who knows? But a bus, it's a very unique thing. So I'd be interested to see if that actually materializes, if there's a need. But the National Guard is we run these three public testing sites for COVID-19. One in East Chatham, one in at Ram High School, and one at the Colchester Federated Church. And we've had to have the National Guard out at the last couple of those clinics to provide some kind of, logistic support, traffic control.
Yep.
Because those lines are, if you're trying to get a test at one of those free testing clinics,
right,
the lines extend 200 cars long before the clinic even opens.
Wow.
So it's the level of disruption that's going on in our communities right now because of COVID-19 is extremely high. But what I'll say that's giving me some hope is, despite the huge number of cases, we still have fewer hospitalizations than at our peak, which was in April of 2020. We peaked out at around 1,900 people in Connecticut hospitals with COVID-19, and right now we're at around 1,600. Now,
right.
I expect us to approach where we were in April of 2020, which is a pretty big deal.
Yep.
It's a pretty big deal. That's a lot of people in the hospital.
Yeah, for sure.
For the most part, those individuals in the hospital right now, the early reports are they are spending fewer days in the hospital with COVID-19, and they are requiring less intensive care than previous variants. So Omicron does appear to be, though it is causing huge disruptions, it is sending people to the hospital, that's happening less frequently, and it is less severe even when that happens. So
right.
I think that's good news. But when you have so many people getting sick,
right,
even those rare outcomes like hospitalization, ICU use, and fatalities are still adding up. So this is not a good situation, Dave.
No, and the thing is, I don't think from a hospital standpoint, I don't think as many people are getting intubated.
That's right. That's right. ICU capacity is still there. So, we're not running out of ventilators, for example. In April of 2020, I think the War Powers Act, or the the manufacturing?
Right,
that
yes.
Federal law to manufacture things, forget what it's called.
Yep.
that was actually implemented so that they could take over factories and make more ventilators. Remember that?
Right.
That was a crazy time. So we're not there. We're not there.
Right.
But certainly our hospital staff, anybody who's working in healthcare right now is pretty exhausted, I would guess.
Right. Now, in relation to the home self-test kits, I know there's protocols on, and maybe we should just go over that just a little bit on, when you get a test,
Sure.
when you should test or wait or whatever we can do.
Yeah, so the at-home tests are pretty good. They are slightly less accurate with Omicron than they have been for previous variants, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't use them. I put people in the following categories in this order for people who should use an at-home test. First of all, if you can get a proper test, I'll say it, a test at a proper testing site, whether it's a PCR test or an antigen test, you should do that. That should be your first objective, if possible, is to get a proper test because they are more accurate. If you cannot get one of those tests and you fall into any one of these categories, either somebody who is sick and knows they were exposed to somebody with COVID-19, that's your first priority. Those people, if you can't get a test somewhere else, use these at-home tests. If you're sick, even if you don't know that you've been exposed to somebody with COVID-19, if you're showing any symptoms, use the at-home test. If you were exposed to somebody with COVID-19 but you don't have symptoms yet, wait about 5 days after that exposure and then use the at-home test. And then the next category would be people who have recently been in a large indoor crowded situation or are planning to go into one of those situations. Even if you haven't been exposed that you know of or you're not showing symptoms, it's a good idea to use one of those tests because right now, remember, as I said, those crowded situations, you're really, in all likelihood, we're around somebody with COVID-19.
Right.
And you don't want to go into one of those situations if you have COVID-19 and don't know it. So
Sure.
use the test. Now, here's how they usually they come in pairs. So
two, yeah.
You'll get a test kit, and it has 2 tests. And that kit is really intended for one person. So if you take the test and it is negative, usually the recommendations are between 24 to 48 hours later. Some say wait 36 hours. Read the instructions, but usually between 24 and 48 hours later, you should use the second test.
Uh-huh.
So if you're negative, then retest. If you're negative again, then you've got some confidence that you don't have COVID-19 at that time.
Uh-huh.
But there is a possibility. I've heard plenty of stories of people getting negative tests and then having COVID-19 later on, or getting a negative test and then finding an appointment at a proper testing site and testing positive. So they're not foolproof.
Right.
What I would say is if you're planning on doing something anyway, like let's say you're planning on going to a big, large in-person gathering, and you're going to do it anyway, take the test, and if it's positive, don't go to that gathering. But if it's negative, I wouldn't go to whatever gathering I'm at and say, I tested negative, I don't have COVID-19, take my mask off, start sharing drinks with people. The rate of false negative results with the at-home test is higher than the rate of false positives. So I wouldn't feel great about having a negative test, but again, it does add some layer of protection, some level of confidence that if you're going to do something anyway, get that test done, and if you're positive, don't get together with people.
Right. So if I'm understanding it, so if you take a test, the at-home test, and it's negative, you should take should you wait a day and then take the next
Yes.
day?
Well, first read the package insert. Read it in its entirety before you start opening up the components in that test. Read it from front to back, and then start the test. And if you test negative, some manufacturers will say do a second test 24 hours later.
Okay.
Others will say do a test 36 hours later.
Okay.
Others will give you a range and say, take a second test between 1 and 2 days later. So just read the package insert and follow the package insert. That's what I would say.
Sure.
Because they'll give you a different recommendation depending on the manufacturer.
Sure.
But generally speaking, you want to see 2 negative tests before you can have any confidence that you're actually negative.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's really tough. I know, Ryan mentioned these at-home test kit distributions. The intention was to have them, I think early on, the intention was to have them before Christmas. Now that didn't happen. They didn't make any announcements, but they've been trying to procure these for a while. And then the expectation was to have them before New Year's, and that's when the governor made the announcement. getting 500 test kits out into the public before New Year's, if they were all used, would have gone a long way to flattening this Omicron surge. You would have had a lot of people who might have been planning social gatherings that would have tested positive and would have canceled those gatherings.
Yep.
So I think we really missed the mark in getting these out in time.
Yep.
To have a big effect on what's going on in our communities.
Right.
I'm not saying that they're not still useful. They are. It's good if you're sick, especially if you're exposed, get a test. If you have the at-home test kit at home, great. But in terms of a population-level prevention effort, which that's what this was, Dave. This was a population-level prevention effort. It really, I think it failed. It's just, it's a little bit too late. So
right.
On an individual level, it's great to have a test, but really we missed our opportunity.
Right. Right.
So now we're in for it.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there any testing sites are you planning on doing anything in our area?
Yep. We've had these 3 testing sites that have been running for months at this point, since August, I believe. We're not moving those. We're keeping them in the same places because we have the logistics worked out and things like that. In East Chatham, that's every other Monday. It actually had been at the senior center. We had to move it to the middle school because it was overrun. In Colchester, it's at the Colchester Federated Church every Friday. There isn't one this Friday, so tomorrow the church is having an event that was pre-scheduled, so there isn't one. At Ram High School, that's going on Saturday, every Saturday from 8 to noon, 8 in the morning till noon.
Now, is that just for local residents, or can anybody
can go.
Anybody?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
No, we don't do. When it comes to testing and vaccinations, we're all in this together. I mean, we've heard it many times before, but we don't give priority to local residents. It's just you get in line and you get your test. You get in line, you get your vaccine.
There you go.
It's so anybody can go, which is great, but it also causes this huge backup. I think if we were to limit it to residents only, we probably wouldn't see the huge backups, but that wouldn't be very fair. And frankly, the state provides the funding for these testing sites.
Right.
And one of the qualifiers for us even being able to do these is you have to open it up to everybody.
Sure. No, absolutely.
But it's not enough. I mean, we can run these testing sites every day, 6 hours a day, and still probably not have enough testing.
Right.
It's tough. I don't want to sugarcoat it for anybody who's listening. It's tough. But if you are fully vaccinated, you're in pretty good shape. I think you shouldn't worry too much if you get sick with COVID-19 or test positive.
Right.
But be very careful, especially if you have older adult relatives that live with you,
Sure.
you spend a lot of time with, or somebody who's immunocompromised, especially because for those folks, even if they're fully vaccinated, we know that immunity is less effective.
Uh-huh.
And so just be careful around those people in particular, and isolate or quarantine. And those recommendations have now changed.
Okay. So is there anything scheduled for the Portland area in the near future? Or?
Yeah, we've got a vaccine clinic coming up. I think it's on our website. It might be coming up next week, actually. So we do have rolling vaccine booster clinics.
Yep.
Coming up in Portland and all our towns.
Uh-huh.
And that will continue for until people no longer need vaccines.
Now, as far as being boosted, now I mean, I've been boosted. So, is there a time limit where if you have been boosted, that wait 3 months and get it again, or what's the protocol?
No. At this point, there's only one booster that has been recommended.
Okay.
So, if you are somebody who has gotten a booster recently, at this point there is no recommendation for another booster.
Okay.
I got the date now. On Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at the Portland Library.
Okay.
We're going to have a vaccine clinic. It's just going to be for adults 18 and over, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson.
Uh-huh.
So we will be doing all, first dose, second dose, third dose, booster dose. And I say third dose and booster dose specifically because third doses are indicated for people who are immunocompromised. In fact, 3 doses means that's your full course, your primary series, and booster doses for somebody who's immunocompromised would be a 4th dose.
Uh-huh.
So there are some small subset of people, Dave, who 4 doses means you're boosted, and that is people who have moderate to severe immunocompromising conditions.
Right.
But otherwise, if you're otherwise healthy adult, and you've gotten 2 doses of the Pfizer, 2 doses of Moderna, and had a booster, a 3rd dose, a booster dose,
Sure.
then you're all set at this
Okay.
point. I know that in Israel they are looking at offering second booster doses for some segments of the public.
Yep.
And Israel has always been sort of pushing ahead faster in terms of getting extra vaccine into the arms of their residents. So it's a good country level study for us all to look at.
All right. Okay, so that is on your website so I'll make sure I get it on Portland's website.
Somebody wants to go to our website. We have all our clinics that are coming up posted there. You scroll down to our main page where it says COVID-19 vaccines, and then you click on the vaccination schedule, and it's there. So Tuesday 11th from noon to 2 o'clock at the Portland Library.
All right, fantastic. All right, Russ. Well, hey, thank you. I appreciate it. And, hopefully this thing, like I say, the forest fire burns hot and then dies down.
Yeah, I would just say for anybody who, especially struggling to get a test, the message right now is if you're sick, stay home for at least 5 days.
Right.
At least 5 days. And if you're starting to feel better, really better after those 5 days, you can go back to your regular activities, wearing a mask at all times when you're around other people. That's the main message now. There's so much COVID out there. If you get sick, assume it's COVID-19, isolate for 5 days. If you feel better after that, go back to your job, go back to school, but make sure you wear a mask at all times.
Right. Great. All right, Russ, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And again, we'll keep you posted, and you do the same. And Ryan, thank you so much for coming in and sharing the time.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Russ, for all your updates. Thank you.
So anyway, all right, guys. Until next time, okay. If you're sick, stay home, but all it all means wear your mask. So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, Dave Kuzminski. I'm your host here at the Town of Portland podcast, and again, this is episode number 46. So be safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Dave Kuzminski. Please tune in every week for new and relevant conversations about the town of Portland. You can find us at portlandct.org or at YouTube/Town of Portland, and now wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please consider subscribing and sharing with friends. This podcast was produced by the Town Tech Educational Partnership Program, which is a partnership between Portland High School and the Portland Town Hall. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or organization, check out towntech.org/podcast to learn more.